Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to Strikes My Fancy. Today, we're doing it dark. We're doing it dirty. We're talking about serial killers. And this isn't just your normal serial killer, like true crime episode. Like, we are going to dive in to the psychology behind serial killers and their childhoods and everything that leads up to them. And then we're going to cover two lesser known serial killers at the end. And before I introduce my guest, I'm going to tell you where you can find me. You can find me on Facebook, the Strikes My Fancy podcast group. You can find me on Instagram, Strikes My Fancy Pod. You can find me on Twitter, Strikes Me Fancy. If you want to listen to the show, you can listen on my website, strikesmyfancy.podbean.com. And I'm also on Apple, Spotify, even YouTube, if that's your preferred listening method. As well, if you guys have a topic that you think I should cover, send me an email, strikesmyfancypodcast@gmail.com. Also, here's our promo for this week. Okay, now, the girl that's going to be covering this with me, she's just fascinated. She's not like an expert or anything, which is fine because that would be a little weird. But she's just as into true crime serial killers as I am. So, Meg, welcome to the show.
Hi.
You got to get closer.
Hi.
Eat the mic.
Hello. I'm Meg. Nice to meet you.
She actually reached out to me because I asked if there was anybody who wanted to talk about serial killers with me. And she was like, ooh, me. So
Pick me, my lord.
Pick me. So we're going to dive in. We're going to kind of talk first about what makes a serial killer, because I personally think they're fascinating. Like, you don't really want to come across one, but they're kind of fun to watch from a distance. So tell them about the trifecta.
Growing up, there was always this thing that people said about serial killers, that there's 3 warning signs from when they're children that make up the potential serial killing personalities. I know, I'm so sorry. Like, it's so weird.
You're
having
nervous.
something
It's
straight.
fine. No, I know.
Straight in my
If you want to
mouth.
take it off the stand, you
I
can.
might end up doing that.
Yeah.
Because the stand is stabbing me in the titties.
And when you told me about this, I did not know that there was like a required trifecta that had to be present for somebody to be a serial killer. I mean, it's in most serial.
So there's the 3 that you always hear about is arson,
Yeah, they like to set fires. They're
pyromaniacs, and then torturing and killing animals.
Yeah, that's
I
not
mean,
normal
kinda
at
like-
all.
If you have that urge, I think maybe that's you might need to get help.
Yeah, that's not normal.
No.
I mean, that's not like, okay, everybody when they're in like elementary school, they do the whole magnifying glass and kill an ant. That's normal.
I mean,
but
I didn't,
like,
but I guess I'm just a good person.
maybe I'm a serial killer.
But no, like, you see an ant on the ground, you just kind of smush it, you
Yeah,
know.
but like if you're going and killing cats and dogs, like that's,
yeah, pretty much things that are
it's kind of like leading up to bigger things. You're testing the waters.
things that people love.
Yeah.
Like, not everyone loves an ant that's just on the ground.
Right. But something that you like can't deny it's cute and you're able to kill it. Yeah. And then what's the other one?
And then the third one you usually hear about is bedwetting. And I'm not talking about like as a kid,
Like
as like a toddler and stuff, but like anything after 5 is kind of a red flag.
Interesting.
If someone is bedwetting after 5, unless somehow they're just like being raised as a wild animal, it's gonna lead to some kind of psychological reason that is happening.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So usually when you come across a serial killer, they've had those 3 things that they've grown up, you know, experiencing or doing or whatever. And it typically leads to them tackling bigger things like people.
Yeah. Well,
Hence the serial killer.
I mean, again, those are just 3 common ones that I've heard of.
What are some other ones that you've heard of?
Well, the ones that I think are going to be more of a red flag than just, you know, like, besides obviously torturing and killing animals, like, that is the number one thing I think. But if, like, as a kid, they're isolated, they're antisocial. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be just one of these, boom, you're a psychopath, or boom, you're going to be a serial killer. It's a lot of these in a combination, along with what's going on in their family life.
Right.
Everyone is different. Everyone's raised different. Everyone has different ways of coping with things.
But when we don't get the things that we need as a child, when we're developing and maturing, our brains can get screwed up and then turn in.
from the moment you're born to the age of 2, those are prime time for being shown love. So physical and emotional love. Most serial killers are not getting that.
Interesting.
And so why I say that is because then they start coping.
Okay, so they develop coping mechanisms.
Yes, and they're bad coping mechanisms because they're like, it's just me. I'm the only one who matters.
It's like a survival thing.
Exactly. I'm the only one who matters. Anyone who comes into my life, they're not going to be here for long. I don't need to count on anyone. It's just me. I matter.
Right.
So.
And that kind of leads into how a lot of serial killers are sociopathic or psychopathic. And those are classified, like they're not actual disorders, but they are classified as antisocial personality disorders. So if they are growing up and they're not getting that attention and that social, exposure that they need to learn how to function as a human being, it can develop into sociopathy and psychopathy, which I wanted to talk about what those are and what the difference is, because I've always found that really interesting, but I never really understood it. So a person with a psychopathic personality whose behavior is antisocial and often criminal lacks a sense of moral responsibility or a social conscience. Now, sociopaths, they have a conscience, but it's very weak, and they're much more easily able to give in to impulses. Psychopaths, they don't feel anything like that. Like, they have no conscience whatsoever. They actually, this was so creepy, but like, okay, if you're watching a horror film and you see like violence, it can kind of make your heart rate go up and can kind of make you feel icky. Mm-hmm. It's the opposite for psychopaths. It actually calms them down.
Okay. All right.
Right? So.
Same.
No, I don't know, Meg.
Just been in the theater. Someone's trying to murder someone. I'm just like, I could go to sleep right now.
Oh my God.
It's so soothing.
So sociopaths, they're kind of your classic con artists. They lie, they're manipulative, they're usually very narcissistic. They don't care about anyone else.
They're your ex-boyfriend.
They lack remorse, but they don't always go criminal. They're not always violent. Sometimes they can just be manipulative, maybe reckless. And psychopaths can sometimes go that way too, but they have a much more easy time giving in to the violent part of it. So psychopaths, on the other hand, like sociopaths, it's almost like it's something that's done to them and they might try to fight it. Psychopaths just embrace it. They are considered cold-hearted. They're difficult to spot because they can be charming, intelligent, and they're good at mimicking things. So they can mimic empathy. They can mimic love. Like, they can mimic that they have these feelings, but they don't, which is terrifying. They typically feign interest to get what they want, whereas sociopaths struggle to fake interest in things. They're just kind of like, they focus on themselves. Sociopaths as well are considered hot-headed. So they may get like really bad tempers, really angry, and I guess that could lead to violence. So I thought that was really interesting how they're both, they clearly both struggle with emotional aspects of things, but like one is just totally guilt-free, like doesn't even have a conscience.
I was about to say,
is relaxed by violence, and sociopaths are just kind of like narcissistic and can be manipulative.
It sounds like one actually shows emotion in the true form because
they can kind of experience
because of the impulse control. They're just gonna lash out whenever they're angry, or they're gonna just obviously we don't really know anyone in our life, luckily,
that we know of. Maybe they're just faking.
Anger issues could be one sign. Going from happy to sad real quick.
That's bipolar disorder, and I have that.
Yes, but when it comes to psychology and like everything kind of overlaps somehow, which is why they don't consider it a true science, because there's no proven theories. There's always some kind of an exception. Yeah. And that's what makes serial killers so scary, because yes, there's commonalities, but in
they're
the
like
end, they're so different too.
Yeah, they're the exception to everything we know.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's why they're so fucking fascinating.
Well, that's a perfect segue. So let's talk about that. Why are we so fascinated by serial killers? And I really was like trying to think about this, because a lot of times I feel kind of guilty when I get excited about like
murder.
Murder.
Someone's death.
Yeah. Yes. And it's kind of that feeling when you're driving past a car wreck and you're just like, oh, what happened? Is there a dead body?
Rubbernecking. You're like, Oh my gosh, what happened?
And it's just like watching this train wreck. And I think it's because it's something that we don't see often. It's something we're curious about because we don't really have that exposure. So, I mean, naturally, the human mind is curious. We want to understand things that we don't know.
Death happens.
Yeah.
And we don't know what happens after death.
Well,
Obviously,
yeah.
Religion comes into play there, but we're not here for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, truthfully, I had read one of the things was that it's a way to get close to death without being a victim of it.
Hopefully. Hopefully.
I actually, like, when I was doing this research, I saw that people collect relics from serial killers. Like, there's one guy that bought a lock of hair off
cursed.
Right?
That is cursed.
And I think Zach Bagans from Ghost Adventures, he has...
Oh, there's no way he doesn't have, like, a whole room full of whatever.
In his haunted museum. But I think he has something from Charles Manson. And I always thought that was so weird. But, like, people said that it kind of, like, gives them a chance to indulge in a fantasy.
Yes.
And I'm like, can't relate. But you do you.
You know, that's actually another one of the things that can point towards an early warning sign is
if you have
daydreaming and fantasies. Because
like
that's
about murder or just in general? Because I'm a daydreamer.
No.
Tonight we realized. No.
Obviously what you daydream about is to you, but usually what they're daydreaming about are ways to get revenge or ways to like take power back. A lot of them are really into voyeurism. They masturbate constantly.
Yeah. Well, the sexual aspect to it is so weird to me. And I think a lot of people I know are fascinated by that. Like how you can get turned on by taking somebody's life.
I mean, and that's the thing is like, I have no idea unless it's
gotta
the whole power.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be like some kid who grew up being abused and felt powerless and is trying to take back that control by killing somebody that wasn't his abuser.
Yeah.
His or her abuser.
And something about being in control of someone completely, you know, taking away something from them. It really comes down to something was taken away from them.
Okay, but that's life that you're taking.
I know, like, but again, coping mechanisms.
Steal some jewelry. Like, don't take life, bro.
Bruh.
Oh, my God. Okay, so that was the first one, was that it allows us to indulge in our most vengeful fantasies without having to act them out and without having to feel the guilt of it either, which was dark. But I mean, The Purge is popular for a reason, you know, that whole series.
Oh my gosh, like for sure.
I would be hiding in a bunker. I would never go out and like murder people. I'm just, no.
I mean, I think that might be another reason why it's so fascinating, because it's similar to The Purge, where when you're watching the movie, you're like, what would I do in that situation?
I know. I mean, I know for 1,000% I would be hiding. Then we all have, I personally believe that all humans have a dark side. I mean, a lot of people put their good side first, but people can bring out the dark side in you. Everybody has one. And so it's kind of like we kind of have empathy for serial killers because we understand they have good parts to them too. Every human has a depravity side, you know, like we all have our hidden things, our demons, so to speak. And so it's easy and important to see how the worst of us become the worst of us. Does that make sense?
I mean, it does. It does for sure. It's just knowing boundaries. You know, what is
normal
real,
people put up boundaries.
Yeah, what is real and what is fantasy.
Exactly.
I mean, everyone has fantasies.
And that's the thing with psychopaths and sociopaths. They have a hard time putting down boundaries and they just give in to those impulses. Whereas normal people can say, no, that is not something I would ever do. Like, even though I could envision ripping your head off, I would not do it.
Yeah, no.
No,
mister. No.
So the next one was that serial killer stories are kind of like horror stories for us. You kind of get that same enjoyment that you would get out of sitting down to watch a horror movie, but you're sitting down to watch like a true crime doc talking about serial killers.
I mean, it comes down to the fact that like, because you've never been through it, it almost feels like you're a little numb.
Yeah,
desensitized.
Numb. Yeah,
like you can understand that it's very scary, but you couldn't imagine the actual emotions and terrified screaming in your head.
Do you like the idea of that, Meg?
What? Where'd I go? I don't know.
I mean, that's true though, because like sexual fantasies, let's talk about it. Like in the bedroom, there's people's kinks where they like to pretend that maybe they're being kidnapped, they're being raped, they're gonna be choked. Like,
I mean, that is a big turn on for myself. I mean, I'm being completely dominated.
Like,
Mom, I'm sorry if you're listening to this.
But yeah, I mean, that's a legitimate kink, and it's like sometimes it can get pretty close to the line there.
But yeah, you never want it to actually happen.
I mean, think of 365 days, which I exposed Megan to.
I don't want to think about it.
Over the weekend. I mean, he ties her up in chains on his bed and then does the whole telescopic bar thing. Like, that's a power move. That's a control thing. And it's like a fantasy.
While horribly done.
Yes,
I do
it
agree
was
with you.
done, but
Literally was not turned on that whole movie. Needs
you
to be
were in one part.
Oh, literally the part where he grabs her by the back of the head and
But then
brings
he
her,
talks
and then he goes, "No, you don't do that.
You
no,
don't
no.
take away a man's pleasure."
It's to me, I'm Mario. You no do. Because he's Italian, get it?
But yeah, I think like, you know, as far as serial killer stories, I mean, we watch them like they're horror movies. We consume them like it's entertainment, spooky, you know. And then there's on the flip side the fantasy in the bedroom with, you know, being tied up and being raped.
Dark,
and
sexy.
yeah, so people have this fascination of kind of acting these out within a safe space.
Yes. That's the thing is, again, knowing what's real and what's fantasy.
Yeah.
It's like you're not going to go out in public and like spank someone and be like, you like that? I mean,
no,
I mean,
true.
I might with my friends.
The worst part would be like if you think that's fantasy and then the person who's doing it is like, oh I'm
my
a
God.
serial killer out of nowhere.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine? Like she's like, yeah, stab me, daddy. And
he's
he's like,
like, okay.
I'm gonna stab you. And she's like, yeah, do it. And then he goes to do it. And then she's like, wait, what is happening?
It's so true. I mean, that would be nightmare fuel.
It'd be very scary.
I think that's happened in a horror movie. I feel like I've seen a horror movie like
probably.
that. Yeah.
It's probably like Scary Movie or something.
Probably. Okay, so then the last one that I had written down was the average person can't understand what would compel someone to rape, murder, mutilate, and even to the point of eating another human being. So in a way, because of our curiosity and we like to know everything, we like to understand everything, we want to figure out why their brains work that way. So it's kind of like, again, the whole, you know, you see a train wreck, you want to know what happened. You want to understand how it came to be.
Right.
And I mean, especially if you're a fix-it person, you want to understand how someone's brain works so you can help them, you know, but like there's really no helping serial killers.
Yeah. Well, that's why it all comes back down to childhood and childhood trauma and childhood everything.
Neglect,
abuse. One of the main things that you come across is a bad relationship with the mom in some way.
Yeah. Mama
issues. You always hear about daddy issues, but what about those mother issues?
You don't see a lot of women become serial killers because of daddy issues, though. It's men who have mommy issues that grow up and become serial killers. Okay, so one more thing that I want to talk about with the fascination of serial killers.
Cilios. Oh.
Serial killers. You had actually talked to me about this when we were discussing this episode, and it was a lot of women watch these things to kind of learn red flags. Mm-hmm. But also, if I were in this situation, what would I do? How would I get out of it?
Yeah, that was the same thing with like the purge thing that I brought up earlier.
Yeah,
it's just like, what would I do in that situation? How would I react? If I know more about this, maybe I'll be able to survive.
Right.
And it all comes down to that. How do I survive this?
Right.
Because let me tell you, some of the stories I have read, I have heard, I don't know how these women survive.
As a woman, though, it's like, I feel like it would be easy to fall for a serial killer. I mean, you see like Ted Bundy.
It's the bad boys.
Yeah, the bad boy thing. Like, he's handsome, he's charming, he's smart. Like, all of these things would draw you in, and then suddenly he's murdering, you know? And it's like,
just like,
what happened?
Ted, what are you doing? I don't know. What?
I know. Like, you think, oh, this is kinky. And then it's like, oh, gosh, my life is over.
You're just like, I didn't even get to have fun first.
I know, right? But I mean, you never know with people. And especially finding out, like, with psychopaths that they can mimic things. Mm-hmm. Like, have you ever sat there and, like, looked at Matt and been like, You have like 2 out of 3 qualifications.
No, it's mostly been, I could probably do it. It's really bad to say.
Have you ever sat there and thought if you were going to murder somebody, how you'd do it?
I mean, not like specifically, but
You
like,
don't have like a plan.
no, I mean, I'm taking notes.
You use sardine oil and you feed them to
you
tigers.
feed them to tigers. Okay.
No, I mean, I've never thought of that. Like, I don't think I could ever get away with it, first
I mean,
of all.
like, when I'm watching documentaries or I'm hearing these stories, I'm like, what would I have done in that situation? That was a stupid move. If you hadn't have done that, you wouldn't have gotten caught.
It's so easy to judge people, though.
Yes.
Like, seeing these stories, it's like, oh, man, I wouldn't have done that, you know? I always feel like the black character in a horror movie, like, you don't go downstairs in the dark when, you know, there's a maniac on the loose.
The lights are off. I'm going to go check the basement.
Exactly.
Bitch, you crazy. What you doing? Don't, Linda, don't your ass go down there. I'm telling you right now. You going to die.
Why do they have so, like, black people really are just so much smarter. Like, it's always the white people that are like,
It's because they've been through so much shit. And they pass these stories. Like, white people be like,
we're so stupid. I honestly think we never think that it would happen to us. We think that we're above that. We think that we're smarter than that. We'd figure it out. Like, white people are narcissistic, man. Like, we think that we know it all and that we could survive it all. Yeah, until we don't.
That 1/4 Vietnamese I have really saves me.
I'm like 90% European, so it's just no hope for me at all. I don't have an ounce of anything worth anything.
Girl, you did.
I know. No, but I mean, like, when you think about the charms of a psychopath, I mean, I would fall for one, probably.
You have a thing for the bad boys, they're saying.
You can.
But
you
who
know?
doesn't? Like, when you're reading romance novels, which one do
You
you get
wanna
turned on by?
Yeah, but you want to fix the guy. Like, especially as a woman, you want to fix them. You want to make them better. You want to take away their pain.
It makes you feel needed.
Yes.
You know,
maybe you elicit something in them that they've never had with anybody else.
And that's exactly. If you take care of them, and if like you prove to be,
they get married.
The ones.
So often serial killers are married, and they will not kill their wife. They'll go out and kill other women. And I think you are the one.
Yeah, they look like their wife or their daughters. Even
they're doing it to keep from killing their wives.
Yes, they're fulfilling that fantasy of killing their wife or their daughters by killing people who look similar.
See, like, that's so how are they able to draw a boundary and say, okay, I'm not going to kill this woman that I married? Like, what is it?
I think it comes down to, like, they really do care in their own way.
But they can't. Like, they don't have those feelings. I'm going to Google that real quick. I need to know.
I need to know.
Psychopaths love? Narcissists, psychopaths, and sociopaths do not have a sense of empathy. They do not and will not develop a sense of empathy, so they can never really love anyone.
Yes, but that goes to the whole how we love. Wholeheartedly, full-heartedly, but
maybe they're fond of you.
It's very similar to, like, Joker with Harley Quinn. He, quote-unquote, loves her, but the way he shows his love is weird. And really what it comes down to is, if I can't have you, no one can.
That's
so
true.
if his wife or his daughters were trying to just get him out of their life, you best bet he would
kill them.
He gonna chop something off. Okay?
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
So
when they lose them, they turn
it's a
on
possession
them.
Almost.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, like they find something pretty, something that makes them somewhat feel like they have because what they're looking for is somebody
who understands them more than anybody else.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is they're looking for something that makes them feel, and sometimes they can get a very tiny feeling of that from who knows what. I think they protect it from themselves for a little bit until, you know, something happens to where they're like, meh.
So I found 5 serial killer myths that I wanted to touch on real fast because I actually believed some of them. And so I wanted to address it because I think the typical serial killer is an attractive white guy. Okay, strike the attractive. A white guy. I was just thinking of like BTK and so I found on scientificamerican.com they had the 5 serial killer myths, and it's written by Scott Bond. The first one is all serial killers are men. Actually 17% of serial homicides in the US are committed by women.
Ooh.
That's a large number when you look at the whole total thing, because there's only like 50, I think it was 50 serial killers active in the US at a time.
Yeah, but when it is a woman, it is so rare that they are killing for like sexual reasons. It's usually for money gain.
Really? So
It's
like Black Widow
for,
shit.
Yes, it's usually for that. They get something out of it by the death of someone around them.
That's interesting.
You know, sometimes it's as simple as, you know, you did something she didn't like.
Now you have to die. Okay. Number 2 is that all serial killers are Caucasian. I actually was thinking this when I was doing the research. I'm like, I don't know that there's any black serial killers. And then I came across one, which is who I'm going to talk about today. But African Americans actually comprise the largest minority among serial killers at 20%. But there's also Asian American and Latino serial killers.
Ooh.
But for whatever reason, only Caucasian ones become pop culture icons like Ted Bundy. And the third one is all serial killers are isolated and dysfunctional. Most of them can hide in plain sight. But why? And that's because they act normal. They behave normally.
And that's why they're so scary.
Yeah, because you never know.
Like, you're gonna be aware of someone who's acting freaking weird or in the corner being all
That's more
shifty.
noticeable.
It's so noticeable. And if they're wanting to kill people, they're gonna try to blend in as much as possible.
Exactly. And they're
create a normal life so they have an alibi.
Exactly. And I mean, that's what, when we were talking about the psychopaths, they're charming, they're intelligent. I look at Ted Bundy. I would never thought he was a serial killer, and neither did 30 women.
I was like, you're not the only one.
Exactly. So, I mean, I feel like, yeah, some of those dysfunctional antisocial people can snap and do that. But typically serial killers are going to be people that you would never suspect. And then number 4 was all serial murderers travel widely and kill interstate. Ted Bundy was actually one of the only serial killers to travel and murder. Typically, the only people that do that are if their jobs lend a hand to that, like truck drivers, things like that. But most of them will stay either close to their home or close to their job. And I think it was John Gacy, I believe, that they actually found all of the bodies like underneath his porch or in his basement or something like that.
Yeah,
like
it was on the property.
Yeah, it was in his home, like that he buried these bodies. And typically when you deal with serial killer, it's near their home. It's like it's in a radius. Okay, and then the last one is that all serial killers are either mentally ill or evil geniuses. Most serial killers are sociopaths and psychopaths, but those aren't actual mental illness diagnoses. It's part of an antisocial personality disorder. They are typically aware that what they're doing is wrong, and they even are cleared to stand trial for their actions. So they're not even excused mentally ill or whatever on trial because they know what they did. They just don't care. And psychopaths specifically, they know it's wrong, but they have like this overwhelming compulsion to kill that just makes them ignore law. And then in addition, most serial killers are borderline to above average intelligence on an IQ test, which is actually right on par with normal population. So they're not even like insanely smart. They just, because of the psychopathy and sociopathy, they are able to manipulate things better.
Well, I think because of Ted Bundy, I think is why people believe that they're of higher intelligence, because he was like 5 points away from genius level.
Yeah.
So
he was super smart.
So I think it's his fault that people just think.
But he's like an outlier.
He is.
Even in the serial
he's one
killer.
of those.
Yeah.
He's one of those exceptions that we were talking about.
Because he did the interstate. He traveled through I think he went through 5 different states killing. And it wasn't even like in a line. Like one was Florida, and then it's like Illinois, Colorado. It made no sense. It's like, how did he get down there?
Where will I pop up next?
Exactly. But he was one of the only ones to do anything like that.
I mean, he didn't even have a job that had him traveling. And that's the thing is most serial killers look for jobs that are going to get them not like traveling the world or anything like that, but at least traveling in their community. So they do like plumbing jobs,
things that can get them into people's houses.
Exactly, mobile jobs. They do other jobs that they come in contact with a lot of people, where they can get their home information or somehow their scheduling information. Like Ted Bundy was a 911 operator. I believe. Or no,
Yeah.
suicide hotline.
Yeah, he was can you imagine? Like, I wonder if he told people to just, like, go kill themselves.
Oh, I'm freaking sure he did. He probably had a lot of people.
That reminds me of that thing that I showed you the other day.
Oh, yeah,
So
do
this
the
is
jobs.
past jobs of serial killers. So you're right. Ted Bundy was a suicide hotline operator at a crisis center. David Berkowitz was a postal service letter sorter. I don't know if he delivered mail, but he
the
knew people's addresses.
Yes.
Dennis Rader was a security system alarm installer. Oh, that's so creepy.
Like the one person
He could, like, make them not go off.
he would know the codes.
Exactly. Peter Sutcliffe was a grave digger and a truck driver. Eileen Wuornos was a sex worker. So imagine you, like, hire a prostitute and then she freaking murders you. Ed Gein, he was a handyman, but he was also a babysitter. I'm sorry, but why would you hire a man to babysit your children?
And that is such a sad, sexist thing to say, but
It is,
so
but it's
stereotypically true.
Yeah. I mean, I would hire a teenage girl over, like, a teenage boy just because of the tendencies there.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we're not saying that they're not capable.
No. And then let me see. Okay. Oh, John Wayne Gacy. He was a birthday party clown.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't he the clown killer?
He was loosely the inspiration for it. And so for Pennywise.
You know, looking at this list, there's a police officer, an ice cream truck driver, an odd job man. I mean, they find ways to get into your home, to figure out where you live, to surveil you. But yeah, I mean, like, a sex worker, she probably feels pretty powerless. So what way to flip the story on that is to become a murderer.
I did want to talk about motivations. There's 7 types of motivations.
Ooh.
I'm not saying that these are the only motivations, but they're the most common motivations for serial killers.
Okay.
There's anger, which, I mean...
That's self-explanatory.
Yeah. And it's usually anger towards a specific person or type of people.
So like a mom or a wife or... Yeah.
Or like women in general, or even society in general.
Okay.
So that's one. Then there's criminal enterprise, which is just, status of money through drug and gang and organized crime.
Okay.
Then there's financial gain. So, your black widows.
Yes.
They're benefiting by getting money out of the death.
They're claiming in that life insurance.
Yes. And then ideology.
So what is that?
So
Alexa, what does ideology mean?
So ideology, it furthers the goals or ideas of a specific group or
like
individual.
Cult shit.
Terrorist groups.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So that's that.
So it's almost like religion, like those kind of, gotcha.
Exactly. Gotcha. And then there's the power and thrill motivation, which means they're empowered. Wow. They're empowered.
My stars.
My stars. So they're empowered or excited when they're killing.
It gives them a thrill.
It gives them a thrill.
Maybe like an adrenaline junkie.
Ooh, la la, I feel.
Yeah, because they're searching for feelings. They're searching for things that make them feel alive.
Exactly. Then there's psychosis, which is an actual mental illness. And it's probably the only reason
they're deluded.
Yes. So something in their head, they're seeing things, they're hearing things. Something is causing them to kill. That is literally the only reason a serial killer can claim insanity or some kind of mental...
Because they were in psychosis. Okay.
Exactly. And then, of course, are sexually based. I don't know what they get out of it.
Well, it's interesting to me because a lot of those are the ones that get married.
Yeah, just like, is she not giving it up? What's happening?
Like what? I mean, are you having a happy sex life at home, or is it just like you get a stronger sexual satisfaction from taking someone's life? So you're just kind of bored.
Well, do you want to know how serial killers choose their victims?
Yes.
So there's 3 things that usually come into play.
Okay.
And it's availability.
So like an opportunity, like you see
accessibility.
a woman, in an alleyway, nobody's around. Got it.
Exactly. Then there's vulnerability, which means are they susceptible to attack? So how easy would it be to attack them?
Yeah, it's just like it's right in front of you. Why not just do it?
Exactly. Like, look, she's so vulnerable. like a
hitchhiker on the road.
Yeah, a petite woman who's
MO.
Third, desirability. So that means the appeal
So, like, if they typically are drawn to black-haired women.
And that is where motivation comes in.
Yeah.
So that means race, gender, ethnic background, age, etc.
Because there's some serial killers that go after young boys. There's some that go after black-haired women. There's a lot of times they don't have a mixture. Like, they'll just pick one certain type. It's very rare to see a serial killer who will go after both black and white women. You know, like, it's not that common because they have an MO, like a type. It's interesting too because like one common thing for serial killers is they take a trophy from their victims, and it's so that they can like relive that over and over. It's
the closest thing they can get to their, because the first kill is the one that they're always trying to mimic. The first kill, nothing ever lives up to the first kill, but they try, and that's why they keep killing.
Because they're trying to get back up to that high that they experienced, the
thing that made them feel for the first time in their life, probably. I don't want to be your sloppy seconds.
Seriously.
I really don't want to even be your first. I don't want to pop that cherry.
We talked about psychopathy. We talked about sociopathy. But what is the definition of an actual serial killer?
So the definition of a serial killer, and this is from the FBI's actual database and website, is the unlawful killing of two or more victims by the same offender or offenders in separate events. So that means that there's
it can't be like murder-suicide.
Exactly. And that's what separates a mass murder from a serial killing.
Because they do that all at once in like some big event.
There's no cooling down time. This person has had the time to reflect on what they did, and they decide to do it again.
Right.
And that's what makes a serial killer. So, and the main thing about them is they're so messed up because it comes down to the part where you were saying like they don't feel anything. But what we need to remember about serial killers is they want to commit murder. They have thought about it.
They obsess over it.
They obsess over it. They need to. And that is, I know it's a creepy thing. And I put that all like in
caps.
It's all in caps. But yeah, they want to commit murder and they need to. It's terrifying. It's not like these people are battling demons in their head. Like, oh, I need to like just get these voices to shut up. No, it's just they've been thinking about it and they finally did it. And once they got a taste, they had to keep doing it.
Because they'll never be
satisfied. It's a drug. It's a drug to them. They're obsessed and they finally got a hit and they need more.
That's why you cannot let them out on parole, because they will do it again. They don't care about criminal law. They don't care about the consequences.
No, yet they still make that mistake.
So we are going to talk about two lesser knowns. Like I said, I'm talking about a black serial killer. His name was Derrick Todd Lee. Also, the ones that we covered, we made sure they were dead because Meg was a little afraid.
It's not that I'm afraid. It's just like something about talking about someone that could technically be alive. And like if you say something wrong, then they get out and they're like, I'm going to show you what really happened. What?
Yeah. No, I totally get it.
Do you?
This guy is 100% dead. Okay. So Derrick Todd Lee. Well, okay. Let me first back up to how he grew up. Derrick was born. His dad left shortly after that. His dad actually had a mental illness and wound up in an institution after trying to murder his ex-wife. His mother remarried a man, and that man raised all of the children according to the Bible. So probably like going from such an extreme to another extreme was extremely traumatic. Derrick also had a low IQ, which made school difficult for him. So he probably was subject to bullying. I mean, you can imagine that. At age 11, he was caught peeping in girls' windows.
Voyeurism.
He would do that into adulthood. And he tortured cats and dogs. At age 13, he was arrested for simple burglary. At 16, he pulled a knife on a boy and got charged with second-degree attempted murder. At 17, he was arrested for peeping again, but he avoided jail time. He got married in 1988, and he had 2 kids with her. The next few years, he lived a split life. On one side, he was a family man, and on the other side, he was a man looking for an affair. His wife actually knew about his affairs, but chose to stay with him. Girls, don't do that. In 1999, he got his girlfriend pregnant. Then he found another woman he was obsessed with, Colette Walker. And in June 1999, she filed stalking charges because he muscled his way into her apartment and suggested they date. And he wouldn't leave. And then he left his number before leaving.
Oh my.
She didn't know him at all. He was just
He knew her though.
Yes, he did. And he actually, her friend noticed him skulking around her windows after that and peeping in. So he had been watching her that whole time. So he was charged, but he got probation. Thankfully, Colette was smart enough to move. So she got out of there.
Didn't make it easy for him, did she?
No. In 2000, Lee got violent with his girlfriend, and she got a restraining order against him. He got arrested for violating his parole and did a year in prison. But then he was released to house arrest. But then he violated those terms and removed the equipment.
Okay.
And all of that, he just got a slap on the hand. So it's unknown when his first and last murders were. In 1993, he hacked up a couple that was making out in their car.
Jealous?
They survived, and the girl actually was able to ID him, which is what led to his capture. But his spree ended 10 years after that attack. He avoided being caught by staying on the move. He would go to all these different cities in southern Louisiana. And so he would just keep going. And because of that, back in this time, police departments and detectives didn't really communicate outside of jurisdiction.
Right, because
So
there was always battling who's the best of the best.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's why a lot of
Yeah.
murders didn't go solved.
Well, serial killers especially,
Oh my
because they
gosh.
had all these disjointed murders, but they never
It's a good time to
realized-
be a serial killer for sure.
I know, back in that day. So they never realized that they were even connected. The police departments didn't talk. In addition, it was not common for the police to even realize that there could be black serial killers. They believed the myth themselves and actually perpetuated it that all serial killers were white males. So even someone gave like like an ID of the man, and the sketch artist actually released a thing of a white man with shoulder length hair.
What the?
And it wasn't anything close to him.
Oh my god.
So it's like, how are you going to catch this guy? In addition, most serial killers kill their own race, right? He killed women from both races, black women and white women. He did not care. He didn't have an MO. And then in addition, he didn't have a signature. Every single time he killed a girl, it was different. It was like one of those opportunity, like the availability.
Right, like in the moment almost.
Yeah, whatever he can do to get it done. It didn't matter to him. The one thing he did that was typical for serial killers was he had trinkets from each victim. So anyway, in 2002, when that composite sketch came out of the white male with the long hair, it continued to mislead detectives and the hotlines. The hotlines lit up, but it was for the wrong guy because he wasn't white and he didn't have long hair. It was a year later before a sketch that even looked similar to him was released. He had to take a DNA test, and it linked him to multiple murders. And before he actually got captured, he took off and fled to none other than Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, man.
And that was where he was captured the next day. So actually, the DNA test, it was tested by DNA Print Genomics. And that's how they determined that he was an African-American man, because 85% of his DNA
matched up
to an African-American man.
Wow.
That was the only way. Isn't that crazy? And because he was believed to be mentally incompetent because of his low IQ, but he still had to stand trial for his actions. And then he became the center of an urban legend, which was actually even featured on the show Criminal Minds. They used his name, and it was this idea that he used a crying baby sound to lure women outside of their front door.
Oh my gosh.
But that wasn't true.
Oh, because, you hear about those. Facebook every so often will come up with something like that. And I'm like, holy shit, if I hear a baby crying, I'm not going to answer.
Well, nowadays, they've got those Ring doorbells, and they always catch like those creeps like on the doorbell and everything. No, seriously, there was like a man who made out with a Ring doorbell. But no, seriously, like with Ring doorbells, it makes it so much easier to see like who's at your door now. I'm glad those exist, but like, yeah, I mean, back in the day, they would
kind of also really creeps me out. Like, what if,
what if you see something like alien?
That was the part of like the Purge that really kind of freaked me out, was like them just sitting out there at the doorbell just watching.
Yes.
And like, I know you're looking at me. We gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
That's the worst. So yeah, Derrick Lee, I mean, he did not fit the typical serial killer MO at all.
Did he get convicted and everything? Like he was arrested and
Yeah,
did a sentence and everything?
Yeah, he got a sentence, and he actually died from heart disease at year 47. He got convicted for his first murder, which was a lady by the name of DeSoto. The next one was the one that got him the death penalty, and he was on death row until he turned 47 and he passed away from heart disease.
Wow.
So yours is another one that's out of the norm because it's a woman.
'Tis a lady.
It's a lady.
It's a lady.
So tell us all about her.
Her name is Nanny Doss.
Of course.
And she is known as the Giggling Granny.
Oh, that's so creepy.
I know. But it also
Hansel
made me
and
want to
Gretel
research her.
Yeah.
I was like, Giggling Granny. Yes. And then as I'm researching her, I'm like, all right, so Nanny Doss was born in 1906.
Oh, she like old.
She
Okay.
old.
You want to make sure she was dead and gone.
She dead. Okay. She is one of 5 children. Her parents were farmers, and her dad was hot-tempered and allegedly abusive, and he often used the children to work the fields, which meant they weren't in school.
Okay.
So she had poor intellect because of that. And
She wasn't very educated.
she was not educated, okay? So at age 7, she hits her head, which we forgot to mention earlier.
Derrick, yeah, he had a ton of head injuries. I forgot, yeah.
We forgot to mention earlier that is one of the main things.
Serial killers are brain damage.
Dude, if they hit their head, get rid of the kid. But yeah, so like Ted Bundy, Richard Ramirez, David Berkowitz, and Dennis Rader, they all hit their head as children.
That's crazy. Okay, so she hit her head then.
She hit her head while she's on a train ride to go visit family. The train suddenly stops and she hits her head against the metal rack that was in front of her. And so after that, she started experiencing severe headaches. She'd black out, and then she had really bad depression. One of her favorite hobbies to do as a child was read romance novels and magazines.
Like sexy magazines?
No, not like,
Oh.
no, like
Vogue.
Like Cosmopolitan and like just those fun things where it's like romance, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, yeah.
And then she also really liked to read the Lonely Hearts column.
She was a hopeless romantic.
And that really stunk because her father forbade her and her sisters from wearing makeup, attractive clothing, and they were not allowed to go to dances or like church functions, anything where a man could be. He would say it's because he didn't want them to get molested. And she was unable to easily go out and meet guys, so she would sneak out at night. She starts working at a linen factory, and she meets this guy. She's 16 now. So after, 4 months of knowing him, they get married.
That's never a good idea.
Yeah. Mama moved in.
Oh, that's the worst.
So Mama was always there, right?
And probably critiquing everything she did.
Yes, always critiquing, taking all the attention away from her. So that got Nanny into smoking and drinking and eventually cheating, in which case he started cheating. But despite all this, they had 4 kids. So they married in 1922, and then they have their first daughter in 1925. At 1927, they have their 4th daughter. When their 4th daughter is born, her 2 middle daughters die of suspected food poisoning. Her husband takes their firstborn daughter and just leaves, leaving Nanny alone with their 4th born, and she has to support her, and the mother is still living with her.
He didn't take his mom, but he took the kid.
Yeah, the mother-in-law died. Mysteriously died. And then, like, after a year, he comes back with their daughter and then another woman who also has kids. And he's like, I want a divorce. So they get a divorce, and now she's got both of her children, and they move back to her mom's. And this woman, being a hopeless romantic, didn't want to be alone anymore. So she found a second husband by writing into the Lonely Hearts column. And he responded. He was very romantic. And then they got married almost immediately.
Seeing a trend.
And after a few months, the true character came out. He's an abusive alcoholic.
Great.
Who was also a womanizer.
More cheating, more affairs.
How fun. So
shattering her dreams of romance once again.
You say that, yet she stayed with him for 16 years. 16 years.
Ladies, treat yourselves right.
So while she's, all the abuse and the alcohol, it's not like she's not smoking and drinking too, and probably also cheating.
Yeah.
While this is happening, her oldest daughter grows up, gets married, and starts having her own children. She has a little boy first, and 2 years later, a daughter. And while she's drugged up and just exhausted from giving birth, her mom comes to visit. And she could have sworn that she saw her mom stick a hat pin in her baby's head, but no one could confirm that because she was so drugged up she couldn't remember clearly. And then when she awoke from her slumber after passing out after all that hard work she just did, the baby was dead and the doctors couldn't determine a reason. So her daughter and her husband, it was just a loss, and it took a big impact on their marriage, and they grew apart. And eventually she starts dating another guy, and Nanny is not about this guy. Okay?
Of course.
She is not into him. And so one day, Nanny and her daughter get into a huge fight that causes her daughter to just say, "Take care of my son. I need to go to Dad." So she goes to Nanny's first husband just to get away from Nanny. And while she's gone, somehow her grandson dies from asphyxiation.
Why would you ever trust her to keep your kid?
Especially if in like somewhat of a memory, you kind of remember her sticking a pin in your newborn baby's head.
Yeah.
So after the son dies of asphyxiation, 2 months after, Nanny collects on the $500 life insurance policy she had taken out on him.
She took out a life insurance policy?
She took out a life insurance policy on her grandson. Soon after that, because, she's still married to the abusive alcoholic guy. It's been 16 years, and World War II ends finally.
Okay.
Her husband celebrates that by getting extremely drunk, just wasted, right? And then he's like, "You know what I want? I'm going to go home and I'm going to get me some." So he gets home and she doesn't want anything to do with him, but he wants it anyways. So he takes it.
Oh, no.
So he rapes Nanny, and she is so done. She's so done. The next day, she finds his buried corn whiskey and tops it off with a little rat poison.
Okay, now see, I can relate to the abusive ones, but your grandkids, don't understand that one.
No more husband, right?
So she goes back to the Lonely Hearts.
This person, she goes back to the Lonely Hearts column and reaches out again. And then after 3 days of talking to this guy, she gets married.
What is wrong with this chick?
Third husband. So yeah, she's in her early 40s, and he ends up being the exact same thing. A womanizing alcoholic.
Because she's never healing from her trauma, and she just keeps attracting the same type.
I think she was lucky in the aspect that this guy wasn't an abuser. He was just an alcoholic womanizer. Even though he was the womanizer, she was the one who would disappear for months on end with other men. I guess he just didn't really care, because she'd come back and she'd be a doting wife.
Of course.
Perfect wife. And she was involved with the church, and she got... she was just a perfect woman in society's eyes.
So he was almost like, go off, get your stuff out, and then come back.
When he died, which I believe she just gave him some poison in his coffee. That's one of her favorite things to do, is just lace some kind of a drink with poison of some sort. When he died, none of the people in the community suspected her. They were just like, oh, this poor woman, she's
a widow.
She loved him so much, and he was always drinking and going off with prostitutes. Oh, no. Oh, we got to take care of her. Poor baby. So she killed him.
And got
away with it again. Then she found out that the house wasn't left to her. The guy left it to his sister. So
she killed the sister.
No.
Oh.
You would think. But
dun,
no.
dun, dun.
This bitch burned the house down.
Oh my gosh.
And then went to go live with her mother-in-law. So her now dead husband's mom, she went to go live with her, waiting for the check. The house
Oh, the
insurance.
house insurance check.
House
yeah.
insurance. It was written out to her husband, but was supposed to go straight to the sister because technically it's the sister's house now.
Yeah.
But she grabbed the check and cashed it illegally. And somehow the mother-in-law passed a little after that.
Wow, what
I don't know. Crazy. Mom-in-law is dead now, so she packs up and she goes to move in with her bedridden sister.
Who I'm assuming is going to die.
Within a couple of days, somehow passes too.
Oh my God, this woman.
And of course, all the while, she's looking for a fourth husband. She finds him, don't you worry. But she didn't go to the Lonely Hearts column. She actually joined a dating service. And she meets a man, and they marry
Really quickly.
Really, really quickly. At this point, she's 46. He's well off, handsome, and treats her well.
That's a first.
Mm-hmm. All the while, she's looking for husband number 5, 2 months after they say I do. So she's already looking for a 5th husband. He's not even dead yet, all right? Looking for another husband.
And he was good to her.
And he was good to her.
Why did she stick it out with the jerks? But then she finds a good one. She's like, oh man, I got to get rid of him. He's annoying.
Too vanilla, I guess. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
I couldn't tell you. I mean, if he's well off, it's probably for the money.
Probably at this point, it was the money and it was the feeling of power, because I imagine in the other
At this point, she's killed so much. I think
Yeah.
she's a little just kind of numb to it.
numb, or maybe she enjoys it.
I mean, who knows?
I mean, she's up to what, like 10?
It feels like that.
Yeah.
I mean, at least her first husband escaped. So,
That's true.
So there's her 2 daughters.
Her 2 daughters, her 2 grandkids, her 3
two
husbands?
mom-in-laws so far.
3
Her
husbands.
sister, and then the 3 husbands
That is 10.
so far.
Holy Okay, who else did she kill?
So husband number 4, well-to-do, all that. Kills him. We're not really sure why. Before she's able to kill him, her mom is like, I'm coming to live with you guys.
Oh, no.
Newlyweds, all they want is to live with their mom. So mom moves in. And
She meets
a
an
few days
untimely death?
later, she goes to the hospital with excruciating intestinal pain and dies.
Did not see that coming at
She
all.
dies?
Okay, so we're up to 11.
And then she kills the husband
12.
very soon after, and almost immediately finds husband number 5.
Because she already had her eye on him.
Pretty much, probably. This guy's very uptight and conservative. He, it's money, 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 sin, sin, sin.
Ooh, that's not going to bode well.
No. Disapproved of her romance novels.
Oh.
So
Strike him down.
It's already. I think she leaves him for a little bit, and then he begs for her to come back. And he's like, it doesn't matter about the money anymore. And he takes 2 life insurance policies out on himself.
He just set it up for her and
He
come
really
murder me.
Really did. She moves back in, of course, right? And then everything's okay for a little bit. And then all of a sudden he gets sick with flu-like symptoms. And so he goes to the hospital and he is diagnosed with a severe digestive tract infection, but he recovers. He went in September and comes out early October, and everything's fine and dandy. She's there. She's like, oh man, I don't know what happened. That really sucks. I love you. Here, you should probably try some of this prune cake and coffee.
Coffee.
Oh my gosh, just coffee. Oh, what? Oh, you taste something? It might be the rat poison I put in there.
Oh no.
And so he dies very soon after his recovery.
Oh my word.
But that's what causes the doctor to be like, no,
Something's up.
something's weird
We
here.
took care of him. He was okay.
I suspect foul play. This nanny woman, she seems very suspectable. So he does an autopsy and he finds the evidence, the
And
stomach.
then they start looking at her past, right?
Not really, no.
Are you
I mean, they
serious?
kind of do. They mostly focus on the fresh because it's the only one they have real evidence of.
That's true. That's true.
So they bring her in and they're trying to get her to talk to him. But she has a magazine. So she's sitting there and they're trying to get her to talk to them. And she's just so infatuated with this magazine that they take it away. And then when they take it away, she gives the attention they didn't want. She starts flirting. She's like flirting with them. This woman's like 50 something now.
Oh my God. And she's flirting with the police.
She's flirting with the police. She's giggling like a little schoolgirl. And then she says that if they give her back the magazine, she'll tell them everything. So they give her back the magazine, and she confesses to killing her husband and then the other husbands. She never said she killed any of her family.
Yeah.
She wouldn't admit to that. But all the while she's talking about it and saying that she murdered her husband, she's giggling and laughing. And she becomes like a sensation. And like whenever people saw her, she was always smiling or giggling. Thus, the giggling granny.
Oh, my word.
So she gets convicted for only the fifth husband. She never got convicted for the other four.
I guess they couldn't prove it.
Yeah.
She's 50. She's probably on her deathbed pretty soon thereafter.
So she was giving life in prison. And then she just dies of leukemia at the age of 59.
Wow. That's crazy. So she was a Black Widow, but she also killed her family members.
Yeah. And she killed more family than she did husbands.
Yeah.
She didn't give a fuck. She killed 2 grandbabies, 2 children.
That hurts my heart.
Her sister.
She obviously had
her own mother.
I know she craved love, but it's very clear that she did not have like empathy or anything like that. How could you kill a newborn baby?
You want to know what they asked why she did it, why she killed the last husband, and she said, because he wouldn't let me watch my show or turn on a fan during the hot summer nights. So, gentlemen, if your wife is asking for some air conditioning during the hot days, maybe just give it to her. You know?
Nanny Doss,
the giggling granny.
That's
the
crazy.
Lonely Hearts Killer. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
The Black Widow.
Well, this has been a really, really fun episode, and we're probably going to come back with more and talk about, you know, other things. I want to do one where it's like close encounters with a serial killer, people who survive. So, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, it was really fun. I was a little awkward at first, but I warmed
Everybody
up.
is. It's fine.
I'm like, I'm
We all
talking to you,
adjust.
but I'm also like talking to imaginary people.
That's fine. All right, guys. Question everything. Never stop exploring. And as always, stay curious.